Editor-in-Chief is live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, welcome to the program. Good to have you company. You're with the Editor-in-Chief live. Great to have you company this morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Duncan, Garner. A banger show is lined up for you this morning. Police Minister Mark Mitchell will talk drug courts. He also fronts up to address the concerns of the police who feel shafted by the government's pay offer. Many are saying, see you later to New Zealand and heading to Australia. They have exclusively been telling us their stories this week. They've told us why they're going, what they want to do. So appreciate the Minister fronting, but what can Mark Mitchell do to stop them fleeing the country? How can we compete with what they pay the Aussie cops? And what does he say to claims from the police that they can no longer do their job properly? So we'll have a chat to Mark about this, and he will join us very, very shortly. Don't miss my chat with divorce coach Bridget Jackson. Save yourself the heartache. Avoid the family court at all costs. Go and see Bridget. It'll save your life. I wish I'd taken my own advice on this one. This will, without doubt, be the most important 10 minutes of your life, okay? So make sure you're watching and listening to Bridget. It'll save you. And why are our bosses so shit? Because so many of them are. It's a long story, but don't miss it later in the show. Your chance to openly put the boot in and keep your job as well at the same time. I'm mentioning no names here, okay, for the sake of all of us, I think. Jump on the YouTube, TikTok, leave us a comment there. It's all there. It's news time. Here is MediaWorks Deputy News Editor. It is Grace Cocker. Good morning.
The Abuse and Care Report is being described as monumental. Around 200,000 people suffered in state and faith-based institutions over 7 decades. Auckland University's Stephen Winter says it paints a bleak picture.
Fairly consistent in saying that New Zealand does not have adequate safeguarding in place for people who are in care.
And politicians have delivered their thoughts. Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngāri-Wapaka says the abuse was criminal.
You listen to all the richness of the kōrero today, but what the hell has changed for us? Bernie Ruru O'Donnell said it. I get really tired of seeing the looks to the horror stories that he has to repeat.
Meanwhile, Greens co-leader Chloe Swarbrick was met with applause during her response.
What survivors told us is that means no military-style boot camps.
Prime Minister Christopher Luxon has apologised and says he will deliver a formal one in November. A scathing review found Hawke's Bay Regional Council's flood protections failed during Cyclone Gabrielle. Wairoa Mayor Craig Little says it's been a closed-door process so far.
All the other mayors of Hawke's Bay are happy moving forward to be part of the solution, but it's got to be a partnership of absolute genuine, that we're in that for a real good reason for Hawke's Bay.
Benjamin Netanyahu is giving a fiery speech to US Congress, slamming anyone who criticises his actions in Gaza. Several people have walked out in protest and more than 100 interns called in sick to stand in solidarity against him. Netanyahu's questioning the character of his dissenters.
Many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with rapists and murderers.
To sport, the All Black Sevens are just starting their second pool game at the Paris Olympics. They're facing South Africa, having beaten Japan 40-12 earlier in the day. And in football news, it's a winning start to the men's Olympic football tournament for New Zealand. They've beaten Guinea 2-1 thanks to goals from skipper Matt Garbett and Ben Waine. Garbett told Sky Sport they had to show some serious resolve in the second half.
That New Zealand, character to dig deep and get stuck in and fight it out to the last minute.
And Sarah Walker's been elected as an International Olympic Committee member. That's News and Sport.
Thanks, Grace. That report into abuse and state care, it is a one banger of a report. Of all the reports that you get in this job, that is the largest and biggest and most comprehensive thing I've seen in 30 years.
And also just the most horrific and
It's
harrowing,
so
and there was no stone left unturned. And now we've got the issue of redress that everyone's looking towards as well, because that could cost, yesterday they were saying, in the billions.
Well, I'm saying 200 billion this morning. That's a figure that's used
in the report. 14 kilos, the entire report weighed. That is how comprehensive this was. It was around 3,000 pages, 14 kilos. They really went all in. I mean, they took 6 years.
$200 billion as a redress is larger than the size of the New Zealand economy as of this year.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, it really is. Okay.
Duncan, Garner, live.
Yeah, Mark Mitchell has one hell of a job, really big job. As Police Minister, the buck stops with him, of course, when it comes to policing in New Zealand. It's no secret New Zealand officers are ditching New Zealand and heading to Australia. We've seen that. First-year officers can earn close to 100k. They get free housing, 20 grand location allowance, all sorts of things. Serving officers have told me all week that they're off as well, given the government's pay offer. They're not happy. We originally had Mark lined up to come on to talk about drug courts, and we will get to that. But police officers who have confided in me all week expect me to put the heat on the 5-0, you see, and the head honcho's here, and they don't come any bigger than the minister in charge, and he's in the hot seat, so no pressure. Mark Mitchell is the minister. Mark, g'day, nice to have you on.
Yeah, good morning, Duncan. No, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so the offer to the police, they say it's not good enough and they're off. What can you do to stop them fleeing to Australia?
Well, I mean, all we can do as a country is continue to work, as an incoming government, is to continue to work hard to move our economy closer to Australia's economy, which is a high-wage economy. Obviously we're working very hard on our education system so that our kids are educated and compete internationally. Our health system, get that to being back to being a world-class health system, which, by the way, we aren't far off that. I mean, I've got huge admiration for our frontline medical personnel and the work that they do, and I see that every day as an elected MP up a Moan Patch. And, of course, law and order, restoring, getting us back on the track of being one of the safest countries in the world, instead of heading in the complete opposite direction.
But how's that possible when police have told me this week, Mark, that they have to prioritise things so much so that they're now not turning up to family harm incidents for 3 days in South Auckland because you've sent cops into the CBD. They're stressed and they're frustrated, and you know it.
Well, that's not correct. Police will continue to respond to family harm incidents where they're required. If there's domestic violence or there's evidence of offence being committed, police will be there. But it's not. The police have been very clear, and we've seen it. It's not a sustainable model for them. They've had a 60% increase in mental health call-outs. Effectively, we have almost 300 police officers a year now dedicated to mental health call-outs. That's not sustainable when you talk about taking police away from their core role. That's what's been happening for several years now. Family harm incidents. Look, there's without a doubt, police have got a role to play with, like I said, with there's domestic violence or there's.
But they can't get there, Mark.
Clearly being committed.
They can't get there. They've told me over the weekend they can't get there. They literally can't get there. Some of these calls are taking 3 days to address.
Well, as the incoming minister, that's. Sorry, I've lost you, Duncan.
Can you hear me all right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I've got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look,
is it acceptable to you? Is it acceptable to you, Mark?
No, I just want to be clear. The reality of it is, as the incoming minister, and for my year, the time that I spent in opposition, Duncan, I went to public meetings every day where the public are frustrated because they can't get a response from the police. And quite simply, it's a matter of this: the police are having to prioritise for a long time, and because they're stretched thin, they're having to deal with and attend a whole lot of jobs that actually they shouldn't be dealing with. Other agencies should be stepping up. And that's a big part of the work that this government's doing, is identifying where the other agencies need to actually step up and provide those services, and then having a plan around how we do that. So, because I want to free our police officers up so they can respond to the members of the public when they put their hand up for help, which hasn't been happening for a long time because they're stretched too thin.
And they're stretched so thin, and they'll be even thinner if you don't get the pay right, because I've spoken to 7 police officers this week who are all getting in touch with the Queensland police recruitment line and dealing with them this week because of the pay offer. 7 of them.
Yeah, well, the reality of it is, when I was in the police, Duncan, the Aussies were here recruiting. That is nothing new. And like I said to you, I certainly don't criticise police officers that choose to go to Australia. They'll make decisions what's right for them and their families, and they've already provided outstanding public service for us as a country. But can we compete with those salaries? I mean, have you got some room to move?
No,
we can't compete because they're a high wage economy. They've got more money than us. We've, as an incoming government, we've got a shambles to try and fix. We've been spending way beyond our means. If we continue to do that, we'd look like a banana republic. Things would be much worse. And we've got to get our economy back up and running and much stronger. And then we can start to head towards that. Even on saying that, the offer that we put forward, when I became police minister, the offer that Labor had put forward had been rejected. And we came forward with an offer that was $250 million more, that moved to paid overtime. And I'm sensitive and understand that the feeling running amongst our frontline police. And I've been around. I spent the last week getting around the country in police stations, talking to them, listening to them, explaining to them sort of where we are and also what we want to try and achieve as a government to get us as a country moving back into a safer place, making their job much safer and making the public safer. So yes, I recognise all those things, Duncan, but at the end of the day, I've just got to keep moving forward. I know what we have to do, and we've just got to keep moving forward on that.
Yeah. So you accept that there will be some loss. There's always been some loss, and we just have to grin and bear it and train the next lot.
Well, look, I think the Australians have asked for about 300 vetting processes to be undertaken. I think as of today, there's probably about 80 police officers that have actually gone to Australia. But I can't be worried about what the Australians are doing. I've just got to be focused on home and starting to fix the problems that we've got.
Yep, okay. Drug courts. These things are remarkable. I know people that have gone through them that have had amazing outcomes. All the evidence suggests that they are the way to go. We have 3 of them, 2 in Auckland, 1 in Hamilton. Are you keen to develop more of them? Because to me, it looks like money is better spent. It's a better investment and better outcomes. It's almost undeniable. But Bill English has looked at this and overwhelmingly says the money is good spending.
Yeah, look, me personally, I agree with you. I think the drug courts are outstanding. It's not in my portfolio area, but certainly I know that the broader justice ministers are looking at that, and I agree with you. The drug courts have been very successful.
Would you like to see, as someone who wants to see less crime over time, would you like to see more drug courts created under your government?
Yeah, I'd like to see what's working for us, and one of our big focuses is speeding the whole judicial system up, because it's very true that justice delayed is justice denied, and at the moment it's just way too slow. So there's several things that we're doing as the incoming government to try and speed that up and make it a better, quicker process for users. Last
time we spoke, you may remember this, and I do appreciate your time, Mark, we spoke about security guards having no powers, and you said you'd look at this because it's become a debacle. I mean, the crims, they know that they can walk past these security guards, they flip them the bird and walk out with a dozen beers. Are we going to do anything about security guards and giving them more powers of detention or arrest? Yeah, so I met with the security industry leaders just in my office literally last week, and yes, we are having talks about that, and yes, there is work being progressed in terms of them identifying, their customers identifying what they'd like to see in any additional powers or changes that we might have to make to legislation, because I agree with you that there's been a huge loss of respect, for our police officers, for security personnel, and that's a big part of what I'm trying to do, is trying to give the police additional powers, trying to support them and allow them to sort of roll up back over the top of these people, the gangs, the boy racers, whoever it might be, that think that they're operating with impunity above the law. They're not, and we've got to send that message. So, are you in favour of security guards having more powers? Well, yes, I am. Fundamentally, I'm in favour of security guards having more powers. It's just a matter of identifying what those powers are, what the security industry is comfortable, what their customers are comfortable with, what police are comfortable with, what we think would be effective, what we think would provide security personnel with more protection, what we think would provide customers trying to go about their shopping with more protection. It's a pretty sad reflection of where we're at, isn't it? That and good on you for looking at this, because we have to. But it's a sad reflection of where we're at in terms of sort of retail crime and how people think they can get away with this. Well, that's the whole reason why I asked the Prime Minister for the police portfolio, because I'm proud of my own public service, and I've never seen. I had a policing career, and I have never seen things as bad as what they currently are, and that's why there is so much effort, focus, and work going on to turn that around for us as a country. Yeah, and that's an honest admission too, isn't it? So you've never seen anything like this before, and you've been right at the front line for years and years. I've never seen it, and I've watched this. I watched this a steady, in fact, a quick degradation over the last 5 or 6 years. A very permissive environment for these criminals to operate in, where they have no respect for anyone, and it's going to be. There's a lot of work to turn that around. Yeah, all the best, Mark. I appreciate your time and availability this morning. Take care. Thanks, Duncan. Thanks for having me on. Cheers, you're welcome.
Duncan Garner, live.
So we accept that we're going to lose these police officers. It's as simple as that. You can't do anything about it, he says. And we've got the worst crime ever in New Zealand. Great. This next 10 minutes could be the most important 10 minutes of your life. And it's the most important 10 minutes you spend on anything this year. Now, we all know a tough economic environment and climate hurts everybody, right, financially. But how does that impact our relationships, when do we decide to break up? According to divorce coach Bridget Jackson, this cost of living crisis is putting immense pressure on Kiwi couples, married, de facto, whatever the situation is, it's ripping people apart in so many ways. Whether it be separation, divorce, it's brutal, and it can sink you or go close to it. Boy, I know this. It's one of the most gut-wrenching and life-changing things you'd ever go through. And someone that can save you from the fight or flight and from the family court and all the sort of cost that comes with it is Bridget, and she's with us now. Hi, Bridget.
Hi, Duncan. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. I'll just get your mic turned on if we can. Bang, bang, bang. Mic goes on. How bad is the situation out there now? Because we've had 5 or 6 years now of this sort of...
We have. It's a melting pot of massive challenges that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
There are so many things happening. So there's a lot of relationship distress, and there's a lot of couples that are breaking up.
More than previously?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we can focus on the divorce stats, but there is a different picture there. Okay,
let's look at it.
Okay, so let's have a think about it. So 2019, there was about 8,300 people that were divorcing. Fast forward to 2022, 2023, we're looking at numbers less than that, so probably around the 7,900. And you think, okay, well, there's less people getting divorced. Well, that's actually it's not true. The stats don't account for de facto relationships. We've got to take into account COVID. We've got to take into account that there's a lot of people who haven't actually divorced, so they haven't gone through the dissolution process. Courts have been closed, all of that. So
Such a time. It took me 5 years to divorce.
Same. Snap.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years is not cheap.
No.
The lawyers were loving it.
No, I know.
5 years, $800 an hour. Ching, 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 ching.
I'd hate to think between you and me how much we've spent, to be quite honest.
Oh, well, we'd be millionaires otherwise, wouldn't we?
We would be.
But so how can people avoid going through what I went through, which was this 5-year drag, and you went through the family courts. That's why you set up your business, isn't it?
Well, I just thought I thought there's got to be a better and more positive way to do this. There really has to, because as you and I know, at the end of the day, it's the children that are massively affected through all of this.
Well, when I left Discovery, for the AM show, after a 20-year service in that organisation, I left. We went into a room, we shook hands, we did a sort of mediation, and I was out the door.
Yeah.
Deal in 3 hours.
Yeah.
A 7-year marriage took 5 years.
I know. There's a whole lot of reasons there, and I think too it does stem from the fact that if you're the initiator of the separation, it's quite different to being blindsided by it, because you're at different stages of the grief. I liken it to a running race. If you're the initiator, you've run that running race. You've passed the finish line.
That's right. And of course, if you are the respondent, you have so much more work to do, and it's more costly.
Absolutely.
I look at my
you're at
legal
a different
bill.
stage in that
Correct.
process.
Yes.
You absolutely
Well, you're
are.
fighting it.
You are, absolutely. And so the melting pot of stuff that we've got going on now, I mean, what I'm seeing in my practice is not good. I'm seeing huge amounts of drug and alcohol addictions with one partner. It's a false coping mechanism.
And that's breaking up the relationship?
Absolutely. The monster within. They're married to the monster.
Yeah, that's right.
They really are. The emotional and well-being piece is huge. Those people that used to be able to, in earlier years, be able to be resilient, are finding it's been really difficult for them to stay positive.
God, how do they cope? I mean,
I know. The financial turmoil across all postcodes is huge. Tell you what I'm seeing lately, probably in the last 9 months, is silver separations. So the older generation separating. And
is that something new that you picked up on?
Yeah, in the last 9 months. So people sort of 58, 60 plus.
It's a tough time to separate.
And they're going, oh my God, I've got 20 summers left in this world.
And look at you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want 20 summers with you.
Yeah.
Well, not you. No, I can do 20 summers with you.
Yeah.
But they're thinking, no thanks.
Yeah, and 70% of women are the ones that initiate separations.
Right, they feel
even
empowered to walk out.
Yeah, well, the great thing is they come to us and they go, I want to prepare for separation. I said, let's do it. We want you to separate with dignity.
So you're trying to do this cheaper than the lawyers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I have got a legal qualification.
Yes.
Lawyers are there to be positional. That's their job.
But they drag it out. It cost me $150,000 to separate, to divorce.
You don't know what cost me.
And I did a lot of the work on that.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it cost you?
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to separate, and you may as well pour it down the toilet when you could have been using that towards your kids.
Yeah. Or a new fishing boat.
Well,
or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? It's just it's such dead money,
It really is.
At a time of your life which is not easy to get it back.
No, it's not. And, as I say to people, you've got to have no regrets about how you go through this process. You really don't. And one of the biggest things, and I want to say to couples that are together, is that you have to deal with your issues within 6 years. Otherwise, the horse is bolted.
Why
I've
is it
got
6
this
years?
mantra. Well, 6 years because people don't do anything about it. It's just a stat that's known.
Yeah, but it's so true, because I remember do you know what? At the end of 5 years, I was like, just take whatever, I'm out.
I know.
I couldn't face one more email from the lawyer asking for this or that. I just couldn't do it anymore.
I really feel for you. The emotional toll is massive. The longer it strings out, the worse it gets, the more money you spend, and the children are in the middle of all of this.
And you try to keep them well out of it.
Yeah.
But what if someone else wants to keep them well part of it as a tool? It just
pawn,
breaks you.
Pawns.
It pawns in the game.
And, I spend, this week I've been spending a lot of time with couples talking about this, because at the moment their largest family asset is worth nothing. So people are having to live together apart. And I am saying...
You see a lot of that, are you?
A lot of it. We're talking about boundaries, rules of engagement. I've said to some couples yesterday, I said, look, I want you to go home for homework and I want you to talk about what do you want your family life to look like in the future.
Yeah.
It's going to go down this path or it's going to go down that path. Now, one of the most important things is to put each other, think about being in the other person's shoes, kind and respectful. Before you say something, is it kind? Is it necessary?
Or is it nasty?
You know, no criticism. Just don't do it.
And keep the kids. So rules are keep the kids out of it.
They shouldn't be in part of adult conversations, absolutely, because they are massively impacted through this whole process. What do
and you may not see that impact
till
till later on, right?
Absolutely. What do you want them to be saying to someone at 25 about the way that mum and dad separated? You know, or even what do you want people to be saying at your funeral? You know, you've got to think about.
See,
these
this is the
things.
thing. No matter how angry I was, and I could see my son in front of me, I couldn't let rip. I couldn't say, "Yo, mate," you know. I just kept it within myself because it's about dignity and it's his mother too.
Yeah, I know, but the problem is that people act in strange and funny, not ha-ha ways when they go through this process.
What does your head in?
Oh, it's you know, it is a roller coaster ride, and I liken the experience to being blindfolded, walking over hot coals backwards with no shoes on.
Yeah, and there's a cliff edge to the one side.
Yeah, it's and this is why. You need to go through this process. You need to get help. You feel the feelings that you're feeling, but you've got to manage those negative feelings. You've got to share how you're feeling. You have got to get that support to be able to get you through that.
Do you know you have to breathe, walk, and feel that there is hope?
Yeah.
Because without hope, you're in a life sentence. Okay, you're not getting out of jail.
Yeah.
So the hope is always there. I plead with people to look for hope.
Oh, look, I tell you, I've had
better.
some real success stories, and Duncan, I have to go into my office and cry when people say to me, "You're a miracle worker, Equalex, you've changed our lives," you know, and it's just
you've lived it. You've been there.
I have been there. I've been in the trenches. I've been at the coalface, and there is a better way to do this. There really is. And
how do you cope? I mean, I see you say you cry. I was going to say you must, when you're downtime, you must live this stuff. It must be heavy on your shoulders.
No, because you know what? I put my health and well-being as a priority. You need to. I can't show up as a great mum. I've got 4 kids. I can't show up and add value to people's situation as a coach if I don't put myself first. And I'm saying to people, you need to do that.
Yeah, and the kids see it. The kids feel everything, don't they?
They do. They do. Absolutely. And the last thing you want is to put them in the middle of it. Now, you know what?
But you're
Duncan,
good. You're so good. Hey? Where were you?
Now, I've got a mantra that I wanted to share with you.
I thought you said you got a mansion you want to share with me. Hey? Well, I'm in. Who's coming with me? I've got a mansion I want to share with you. Well, you're not the first to say that. Yeah, you know.
So I've got a mantra.
Yes.
And there's always a positive and a negative, and you need to find it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to dig very deep to be able to find that.
Coming up here, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I just want to say to people, the times you're going through now, we know it's really damn tough. Oh, can I say that word on this?
You can say it's really bloody. Hey, you're entitled to swear. This is a divorce happening here, you know? Everything's not sweet.
And that is that in tough times like that, really tough times like this, you know, it's an opportunity as a couple for you to plan for change and be adaptable in terms of your finances.
And look at what you're worth and say, well, how much of this do we want to lose?
Yeah, and how much, and thinking about reflecting on what you've built thus far.
God, I know all this stuff. What did it happen to me?
That's that's really important. And I think too is realising that. What are your money personalities and how can we make the best of the situation? If there's a spender, which can be really dangerous at this time, particularly with emotions being tied up with going to the shops and buying clothes or whatever, and someone's a saver. So what does that look like? Does the saver go and buy the groceries and then the spender is the one who makes the meals or whatever? Because you've really, the other thing, Duncan,
we're not even talking at this stage, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's right. Communication.
Yeah.
You've got to communicate.
Well, what if you have to communicate between, you know, you can speak to my lawyer and they can speak to my lawyer. That just costs you. That'll kill you. That's it.
I mean, you know, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is running to a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
And I was told, Duncan, you've got to get a good lawyer. The truth is, Duncan, you've got to avoid the lawyers.
Duncan, you should have come and seen me.
Yeah, I know, but you were I think you were probably divorcing at the same time. That could have been dangerous. Hey, Bridget, thank you so much for what you've said, and it's a real eye-opener, isn't it?
It really is, and thank you very much for having me on.
We'll do it again, okay?
Love to,
We'll do it again.
love to.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Duncan Garner, live.
Oh, it's a roller coaster, isn't it? You've got to leave the office now. You've got to leave the studio now. This is scary stuff. Right, let's do 3 questions.
3 questions from the Editor-in-Chief. 1.
At number 1 today, it goes like this. I'll say more on this shortly, but should compensation be paid to the survivors of state abuse, as identified in the stonker of an inquiry? Well, you'd think so, but to do it properly could cost up to $200 billion, according to the report. It's that big, and it was so widespread. $200 billion is bigger than the size of the entire New Zealand economy. It would sink us. So how much should we pay? No one's got any idea.
2.
At number 2, Canada. Canada. Their first name comes to mind when you think of cheating. It's not Canada, it's the Aussies. Forget the Aussies. Canada flew a drone over our women's soccer teams training at the Olympics. Nothing more needs to be said, does it? The Olympics and all this shit about sporting ideals and fair play, blah, 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 whatever. How dodgy. Dock them some points at a very minimum. Or scrap them.
3.
And number 3, oh yes. Do you have a bad boss? Is he or she just simply a crap boss? Most likely, the latest evidence is out, and nearly half of our bosses have had no training and have no idea how to manage people. Makes sense now, doesn't it? Managers. I mean, who really wants them? Good morning.
Editor-in-Chief, live with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, well, the truth is not many of you want them. I mean, the ones that you've got aren't that good. Sticking with this theme, and not only have they not been trained in how to manage people, they've offered little or no support. That's the problem for them. And some are doing it for no extra money. So no support, no extra money, and they're dealing with a very complex workplace, especially because of the digital age and remote working environments and different expectations from the likes of Gen Z, the workforce. And so why are we hanging out our people leaders out to dry? What can we do better, and what are the consequences for Kiwi businesses? Shay Peters from Robert Walters Recruitment. He joins me now. Shay, g'day, mate. Nice to have you back on the program.
Hey Duncan, how's it going?
Yeah, good. This is well, we're doing it because we find it interesting. You know, almost half of our bosses aren't up to it because, well, they're not given the tools either. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think we've really got to we've got to retool these bosses, right? So often people can be thrust into management or line manager roles because they might have great subject matter expertise, but very little people skills. So they've excelled basically doing the job, but actually having to manage people, they could really suck at it as well. So there's a way we can really tool these guys up to succeed.
So how do you tool someone up? So someone is good at their job, so they become a manager. Someone's good at what they might do, so they become a manager. But they've got no people skills. They're really great at breaking stories as journalists, but now they're in charge of a whole newsroom. They've got no people skills. How do you suddenly get someone to have the right people skills and attitude towards people?
We've got to really think about succession planning. So it actually starts from succession planning. So if we're succession planning properly, we're actually tooling these individuals up before they become managers. And I think that's really where organisations are going wrong. They're not investing time in training people to become a manager. And the world of management is so complex now, like you mentioned before. You know, we're living in a society that, you know, let's be honest, it's quite woke, right? So there's so many different factors the modern day workforce are looking for. They're looking for an organisation and a manager with purpose, a manager who has similar values, etc. So we've really got to understand what the workforce wants from a manager and tool people up before they go into management roles.
I wonder how many managers are doing, as you say, some of these woke things, some of these things that they need to be seen to be doing. So they're doing all these things, but they don't believe in it. But it's a box-ticking exercise. I mean, really what they should be doing is driving that team to make more sales or do whatever. But we seem to be stuck at this in this time where we must do all these other things first to placate everybody, and then we'll look at the management of things after that. But that makes them look like a good manager. They may not believe in it, but they do it anyway.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really hard on managers once they're thrust into this role, you know, they're now talking about not feeling supported in their role. They're feeling overwhelmed. They've got imposter syndrome. And so that starts to have an impact on their mental well-being as well. So we're in a bit of a spiral at the moment because of the complexity of what people's expectations are of their organisation and of their line managers. So I think we've really got to reset the bar around what it means to be a manager in modern day society.
Do many businesses invest in their managers? Do many businesses, you think, oh yes, they all get sent away on courses how to become better at this and that, but are businesses really investing in managers, or are they just, is it hit and miss and let's hope they're any good, you know?
Oh, I think a lot of businesses are, a lot of organisations are, but it's when they have capacity to do so. And at the moment, you know, cost is a massive factor for a lot of organisations out there. So what tends to get hit? You know, it's nice to have things like learning and development and management training, which is which is a huge part of that. So they don't have the time because they're on the hamster wheel trying to, like you mentioned, turn sales or increase their revenue line. And at the moment, there is simply no time or investment, or as much there has been in the past, about going into training managers before they actually become managers, or even recently after they become managers too.
Hey Shay, just before you go, you're in the job market, recruitment market. What does it look like right now in terms of the job market? Because we've had such a shift in the economy. It's really taken a dive since about March. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's bleak. I have to be honest, it's really bleak. People are leaving New Zealand. People are going offshore because there's just not much opportunity here at the moment. Now we've got a government that's making quite significant cuts on employment in the public sector. We've got pressure going on the private sector. It's not a great time to be in the labour market in New Zealand. Like I said, we're seeing so many people seeing their future offshore, which is a real shame because we're losing a lot of talent. We really are. And just listening to Mark Mitchell earlier on, the police minister, saying he's never seen crime like this in New Zealand ever. So he says it's the worst possible time in New Zealand for crime. You're saying to me, are you, that this is probably some of the worst times you've seen in terms of the employment market? Would that be fair to say? Yeah, and I've been in the employment market in New Zealand now in this type of role for over 15 years. And, we've been through GFC, we've been through COVID. This is death by 1,000 cuts at the moment. This is not flash. Wow. It's the worst you've seen. Yeah. Hey, tell me. I don't need to ask you anything more about that. I think we've closed the door on that one. Hey. The difficult workforce in terms of workers, Gen Z. They've proven themselves to be a pretty fussy lot, have they? Oh, mate, it's a minefield out there trying to manage people in modern day society, and I think that's why a lot of our managers are actually feeling under the pump and got mental wellness issues. Yeah. Gen Z have got so many different motivators than what we're used to. It's not just about doing the job. Now it's about making sure they've got an excellent work-life balance or a work balance in some instances, which makes things pretty tough. And people are working from home and all of those factors we've never had before. So it's a pretty tough landscape to navigate at the moment. Yeah. Hey, you've been great. You're always bloody great, but today especially, you've hammered it. You've hit a home run. I appreciate your time on the program, Shay. All right. Thanks, okay, Duncan. Mate, take care.
Duncan Garner, live.
Okay, a lot of feedback coming in. Forrester, can you run me through some of the feedback? Because I'm such an imbecile and, born in 1974 that I just can't work out the computer. Can you tell me what's coming in? Hello, Forrester. No mic, bugger. Well, we'll get a mic when Media Books and find $100. We'll get another mic. We'll get a new mic at some stage. Right, good to have your feedback. I know there's lots of it. We just can't see it. Good morning.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Oh, yes. The wonders of working here. This report into abuse and care is unequivocal in its findings. And this Slam Dunk I'm going to do right now is confronting, and it comes with a warning about its content. Some might find this hard to digest. But without any doubt, our prisons are full today, almost without exception, because of what happened to these prisoners in their youth while in state care. I will explain what happened and what comes next shortly. But instead of receiving care and support, children, young people and adults in care were exposed to unimaginable physical, emotional, mental and sexual abuse, severe exploitation, neglect. Those practices continued as this inquiry was underway. Of the estimated 655,000 children, young people and adults in care from 1950 to 2019, it's estimated that 200,000 were abused. 200,000 were abused and even more were neglected. The true number will never be fully known, says this report. It goes without saying it's a national disgrace. And the same governments of the day were running around the world, the governments of the day, all our governments through this time, they ran around the world speaking about human rights at home. They talked about how great we were, yet at the same time we were abusing kids in their care and covering it up. My view is an apology on its own is not enough, no way. Abuse and neglect almost always started from the very first day a person was placed in care. Isn't that ridiculous and outrageous? It often continued the entire time a person was in that state care. For some people, this meant years or decades of frequent abuse and neglect. For some, it was a lifetime. For others, it led to an unmarked grave. This is what the report says. Once in care, Māori survivors experienced harsher treatment, more violence was involved. Intimidation, humiliation, physical abuse was prevalent right across the settings. In some cases, staff went to extremes to inflict as much pain as possible, using weapons, electric shocks. Staff often pitched children against each other, sat back and watched, encouraging peer-on-peer abuse. This involved vicious violent attacks and humiliation rituals, which staff ignored. Now, I've got two friends today who were in state care for certain periods as young men. They were brutal times. They often speak of the fights and being scared to live, but also being too scared to die. They went to bed shaking. Sexual abuse was commonplace. One of my friends was horrifically abused by his father, who was sent to jail. And my friend was sent into state care, only to be abused by the state. Once out, he was returned to his father, and the cycle repeated itself. He ran away from home to seek help, and he ended up in a gang, patched gang member of the headhunters. He ended up spending the next 30 years in and out of prison for heinous, brutal, violent crimes, which he's embarrassed about, and it's mostly violence-related. He's out now, thanks to the remarkable drug courts, who finally, with a solution, he got his life back on track. It was tough. But finally, they sent him down the health route, not the prison route. But he lost 40 years of his life due to how he started off his life. His father was jailed for it. The state's never paid any price. The perpetrators have never been named, let alone held to account. It's horrific. He now has 8 kids and a wife. He's clean, he's free, and it's nothing short of a miracle, and I'm really proud of him. But he's turned his life around. It's amazing. It's almost unrecognisable to where he was. Seriously, the drug court and its approach changed his life forever, and I'm proud of him. But boy, it's been some journey, and he's paid the ultimate price, hasn't he? Which started when 2 men, one being his dad, interfered with him. That's why this report into the abuse is so important. Successive governments and ministers and heads of government departments knew this was happening for decades, and they simply looked the other way. That is gross negligence. They ignored it. Now, should some of these people be held to account for failing to act? I bet they aren't. An apology is only the start of what's required here. Real accountability is tracking down the remaining perpetrators and putting them before the courts. Show the survivors that we mean business on this, and pay compensation, who knows, but to what level? To do it properly would bankrupt the country. I'm really clear about that. The figure of more than 200 billion is used in the report. That's the cost of this whole thing. That's larger than the entire GDP of our country this year, in this financial year. In 1 year, bigger than that. It's unfathomable. But an apology on its own feels not good enough. Compensation to whom and how much will haunt those in power for weeks and months, if not years, to come, I would have thought.
Duncan Garner, live.
Yeah, so that is us. Thank you so much for your feedback today. Just to sum things up, any answers on police pay? No. They do not intend to give you another cent, and if you're going to go, you're going to go. That's what they say. That's what they've said today. Which for some officers would be really bleak news, I would have thought. This will be available on the podcast shortly. We'll chuck it up on Rover and wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you for your feedback today. Also, thank you to my team. Miranda, nice to see you back. I hope you're well. You poor thing. And Caleb from home, thank you so much for letting us know that you're sick. See, this is terrible, isn't it? Poor buggers. You're going down. I'll be next. I'll be going down next week for the entire week. So, yeah. Have we got some backup? Forrester, you're going to be in the hot seat, mate. Forrester, thanks so much, mate. And Zarina, of course, thank you so much. This is our life. This is the life we live in. There's no curtain raiser. There's no second take on this. We live it now, so get out and enjoy it. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
That was Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief Live. Missed something on the live stream? Text Duncan to 3598 to listen back on the podcast. Want to get in touch? Call 0800 863 293.